soon. But right now we're going to move on to our next speaker, who is Claire Bidwell Smith. I'm so honored to be able to introduce Claire to you today. Claire is a therapist specializing in grief. She's the author of 3 books about grief and loss. Her memoir, The Rules of Inheritance, is not to be missed. It is a stunning story of the early loss of both of her parents. She lost her mom when she was 18 and her dad in her 20s. She also wrote a book after this about her explorations in afterlife research. It's absolutely fascinating. And her most recent book is the groundbreaking Anxiety, the Missing Stage of Grief. She offers online programs for grief in addition to working with people one-on-one. She's widely sought after as a speaker about grief. And Claire is the co-founder of Motherless Daughters Retreats. We came up with this idea together, and we led the first retreat in Ojai, and it was so magical and so life-changing for the women there, and for her and for me as well, that we went on to lead 7 more retreats together. And the retreats had to pause because of COVID, but we hope they will be coming back either later this year or early next year. We do them for early loss and adult loss. Claire is a brilliant facilitator of groups and one of my beloved friends. Claire, I'd like to hand it over to you. Are you here? Can you unmute, Claire?
I'm right here. Thank you, Hope.
Okay. Hi, sweet.
Hi, everybody. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you, Hope. I have a 2-year-old on my hands, and he may pop up and say hello. So, but I'm talking about juggling motherhood and being a motherless daughter today, so it's fitting. But thank you so much for that introduction, Hope. It has been such an honor to work alongside you for almost a decade now. I tell this story at all the retreats that we've led together, but my mother died when I was 18. She had cancer, and I was living in New York City at the time, and I was in college, and a few years went by, and I just, I didn't know anybody who'd lost a mom or who was going through what I was feeling. And I just thought that there was something wrong with me, until one day I walked into a bookshop in Astor Place, and there was a whole display of motherless daughters. And I stopped in my tracks, and I thought, oh my God, this is maybe like a thing. Like it's okay that we can have a hard time losing our moms. And that book really was the beginning of my healing journey. So I am forever grateful to you, Hope. And today I want to talk about juggling kids while being a mom who doesn't have a mom. I'm 42 now. I have 3 children. My oldest is 12, my daughter, and then I have another daughter who's 9, and I have a son who's 2. I became a mom 13 years after my mother died. And there were all these kind of moments and points of my mother loss journey that is still continuing. But that was another really big one, was this moment when my first daughter was born and holding her in my arms and really realizing that there wasn't something wrong with me for missing my mom. I think when I really had that first connection with her as my daughter, it helped me understand everything that I was missing in this very primal way. And I began to finally forgive myself for not being quote unquote over the loss of my mom. I think I had really beat myself up. I had thought for a while that I should be doing better, and I was doing fine. I missed my mom every day, like I still missed her. I still wanted a mom. I still felt like her loss was playing out in my life all the time. And when I became a mom, I finally really realized why. And I began to accept that it was okay and that it was always going to be a part of my life. But along the way, there's been a lot to juggle, being a woman who's constantly nurturing 3 kids and a lot of clients and work. I don't have a lot of nurturing coming in. I don't have a mom there to remind me to mother myself or to take care of me. So those are kind of pieces that rise up for me still. I have mother-in-laws. I am a stepmother. There are lots of different kind of mother roles that continue in my life that I have to kind of navigate, and they're complicated. And I think that the way that I get through them most of all is to give myself a lot of compassion and grace to not do them perfectly, and to keep learning and exploring and letting it be okay that it's hard. Just like Hope said, Megan Devine's, it's okay that you're not okay. I mean, we don't have to be great at this, right? I don't have to love having a mother-in-law and not a mom. Like, that's really hard. I think that's so hard for so many of us. I'm on my second mother-in-law too. I'm on my second marriage. And so I've done this once before. And it's, while I really appreciate my mother-in-law, it's not easy to celebrate her on Mother's Day and not my own mother. Um, Ways that I've really incorporated my children into or my mother into my children's life is to talk about my mom all the time. I have pictures of her up everywhere. I wear things of hers. I'm always wearing a ring or a pair of earrings. I have already passed things down to my daughters. One thing I try to remember to do all the time, and I think Allison Gilbert, I think this was you who has reminded all of us about this, but instead of saying my mom to my kids, I always say your grandma Sally, because that way it really reminds them that they have two grandmothers. It just kills me that they think about their father's mother all the time and not my mom in that way. So I've been working really actively to change that. And thank you to Allison for that reminder. I see it a lot in your work. This year, I was out shopping at the grocery store, and my ex-husband texted me and asked if I would pick up a couple of cards for his mom and one for his mom from my daughters. So it's my ex-husband. I'm buying his Mother's Day card and my daughter's Mother's Day card for his mom. And I was fine with it. We have a good relationship. I picked out some cards and then I stopped. I was about to turn and I stopped and I thought, you know what? I'm picking out a card for my daughters to write to my mom too. I don't want my daughters to just write a card to their other grandmother. So I picked out one. Last year, I picked out a card for my mom that I wrote myself. And this year, I picked out one that my daughters wrote, and they both wrote in it. And I looked at it the other day. I took a little sneak peek, and one of my daughters had written, "Dear Grandma Sally, I've heard so much about you. I feel like I know you," and it just made me cry, and it felt very validating. I'm always cooking with my girls, which is something that my mom did with me. And she was an actual cook. She owned a restaurant and it was a big part of our lives. So I'm always cooking with them and I'm always reminding them that everything I'm teaching them, I learned from her. So I kind of bring her into our days in that way too. Um, I think that it can be just so difficult to be a mom who doesn't have a mom, though. I think that our partners don't always understand what that feels like. I think that our in laws don't always understand that. I think our children are obviously mostly unaware of this, maybe until they get older. So it really falls on us to find ways to honor our moms, find ways to bring them into our lives, find ways to take care of ourselves through our mother journey. And that's also, the last thing I want to say is finding ways to nurture ourselves as women who don't have moms. That was a final piece of my journey that I most recently worked on. It's not the final one, but it's going to be the one that I continue throughout my life. I thought initially when my mother died when I was 18 that the answer to not having a mom was not needing a mom. And in my 30s, somewhere along the way, I realized that the answer was learning how to mother myself and learning how to fill in where she couldn't. And that has been a big part of it. And it's not always easy. It's not easy to remember how to nurture ourselves and to love ourselves as a mother would. But I think that that is a really intrinsic part of healing, of moving forward, of bringing our moms into our lives as much as we can. So thank you all so much for showing up today. Thank you to Hope for holding this space. And I'm just so honored to be here. And go easy on yourselves, nurture yourselves, be kind, and especially this weekend.